Welcome back to the Overheard Podcast, recorded live in Banff. My name is Daniel Rudel. No Matty Rage with us today. Big shout out to him. He's on the little click clackers doing some editing for us behind the scenes. Hope everything is all good for you up north, buddy. If it's your first time joining us, please don't forget to give us a little like and subscribe. We find it changes between the weeks, sometimes 70 all the way up to 80% of our viewers are joining us for the first time. So if that's you, costs you nothing, please don't be shy to hit the like and subscribe. Helps us tremendously. Our guest today needs very little introduction in Banff. We're sitting here again with Mayor Corrie DiManno. Thanks for joining us.
Very happy to be back.
How's the day so far?
It's going fantastic.
What a gorgeous day we have finally. All this rain is really bringing a nice, lush Banff.
Absolutely. It makes me realize that I'm solar powered. I've got so much more energy when the sun's out.
Oh, so good, right? Especially after a long winter, we're all eager to get outside. Joining us once again is Mayor Corrie DiManno, the current mayor of Banff and a familiar face to anyone who follows what's happening in town. First elected to town council in 2013 and elected mayor in 2021, Corrie has been front and center for some of the biggest conversations facing Banff, from housing to transportation to tourism, growth, and the community of the future itself. The last few years have been anything but quiet between major housing projects, debates around parking, which we'll get into in a little bit, visitation, infrastructure upgrades, and the constant challenge of balancing life for residents in one of the most visited places in the world. There's been no shortage of issue crossing the mayor's desk in the recent past, I would say. Today we're catching up on what's changed, what's keeping people talking, and where Banff goes from here. But before we get too far into things, we're going to check in with our sponsors over at Drink Shaft. This episode couldn't be possible without them, so we'll be right back with you. When it's summer in the Bow Valley, early isn't optional. First light on the fairway, glassy water on the shoreline, that warm hit of sun that tells you the day is yours. But there's a difference between showing up and doing it right. And that, my friends, is Drink Shaft, the Bow Valley's #1 grab-and-go cold brew. So start early and do the day right with Drink Shaft. Let's get right back to it. All right, so we're back. The last time we sat down, Corrie, was during the municipal elections. For someone who hasn't been following the council closely since then, what's the biggest thing that's been happening in Banff?
Well, so I had to cast my mind back to when we were sworn in November.
Yeah.
And I've asked myself, so what's gone on since then? And what's the biggest thing that's gone on? And I keep coming back to moving the Banff sign.
Moving the Banff sign, yes, absolutely. What's your take on it? You think it's better in this location or what?
Oh, for sure. I think that it's a much more pedestrian-friendly area, and it just makes more sense for folks to be able to park at the train station, walk to the sign, and they're soon going to be able to enjoy a parkette, get their photos, and then walk into town. But I was being a bit facetious.
Fair enough.
But, so yeah, we've officially moved the Banff sign. We decreased our tax rate to inflation. We held it at inflation for the first time in more than a decade. We
Amazing.
Approved some funding for the future Fenlands project. We're looking at trying to potentially expand the Banff Child Care Center to add more spaces.
Cool.
We broke ground on 50 Wolf Street, which is just amazing.
Very exciting stuff.
And we received some more Housing Accelerator Fund money based on our car share pilot program.
Yeah, the car share program. I did get an email regarding that. There's a bit of an announcement coming up. So giving people the option to be more mobile in the town of Banff without adding vehicles to the overall footprint. I thought it was a great idea.
I think it is too. Really excited to launch that and give people that micro transit option. So we've done really good at building a mass transit system, and this helps people with those little things like moving day or going to the city or getting to the trailhead. So really so keen to see how Banff embraces it.
I love that you mentioned moving day because it's something that I've dealt with in the past, not having a vehicle in Banff. I've moved using a taxi multiple times. So you put all your stuff out on the front lawn, you call the cab and you say, hey, I got one trip, I'm packing this stuff in. It was in my days where I didn't have too much stuff, usually in and out of furnished apartments, so it kind of made things a little easier.
Well, as if moving's not hard enough, and then that kind of Tetris you have to do.
Yeah, and then the poor cab driver who gets that fare is just like, all right, I guess I'm helping this kid move today. Like, awesome. I think one of the big things that's been brought up more recently, now correct me if I'm wrong, was it Councillor Mark Ledwidge that brought up the minimum wage, something about minimum wage equivalency or the income equivalency to housing? What's this? We're inviting an expert in to come and talk with the council.
Yeah, so we are getting a presentation from the Alberta Living Wage Network.
That's the one.
And it's a 90-minute presentation, so council will be able to really take in the information and have, an informal back and forth to understand how it all works, and then council would go from there. So I'm certainly trying to learn more about it. We know that affordability is a huge issue here. And I think recently we got a report on some tax filer data from 2023.
I think I saw a post about this morning, and it was saying like how the median income is between like 20 to 40,000, yet the rental rate is a certain amount. I forget exactly what it was.
Yeah, so our median income is just under 40,000, meaning half make less than that and half make more than that.
Yeah.
And that report was also trying to highlight income in the context of housing. And so we know that 30% of your income should be what you're paying for rent. And so if you're paying more than that, then we know that your housing is unaffordable. And so it was really talking about not only wage, but also your hours, all adding up to your income, and then what that looks like for your cost of housing. So if you're able to reduce the cost of housing, then that frees up 70% more of your income.
For sure.
For groceries and transportation and life. So it's an interesting conversation. It's also very complex, so looking forward to understanding it better.
100%. I've kind of like mulled that over myself as like, do I just buy a trailer and go live at Dead Man's and like in a mobile home and like save that, X amount that you're saving a month, right? Like if you can put $2,000 off your rent a month, like that's huge. I think we see that not so much more in Banff, but in places like the next town over where you have people living out of their vehicles a lot more. Here, obviously not a reality. But people have like, I've heard of people living out of campgrounds and things like that and extended stays. So I don't know. I think it's a great thing that the council is taking responsibility and putting this forward.
Well, we haven't put it forward yet. We're just getting some more information.
Well, even then,
and
just like
more.
getting more information about it. I think that's a cool thing to look into on the realities of what people are making versus what they're spending and how we can kind of get that a little bit closer.
It's so funny. I thought you were going to say Skajoring or the high water advisory that we had as talks of the town.
Oh, yeah.
So that just totally threw me that's the one that you brought up.
The skijoring?
It just shows you never know what's on top of mind for people.
For sure. I don't think the high water thing was a huge issue for me because I was around for the floods, the floods in 2013. I think I read some stats that were like the flow was only 20 to 40% of what that was, or something along those lines. Oh, so I wasn't like freaking out. Like I thought it was kind of cool.
We definitely were not close to the 2013 levels.
Yeah, like especially that there was no infrastructure damage. Like we seemed very prepared for it as well, which was pretty cool. I feel like social media really loves to blow something like that out of proportion, especially when it's weather related, because it affects everyone, right?
Totally.
And everyone can like put their 2 cents in on that conversation. I was ready in case something really like jumped off, but I was like, I don't know.
There's a great quote I saw recently that said something like, climate disaster is a series of, you're looking at the photos online of other places and then slowly but surely you're the person behind the camera taking the photo.
Interesting. That's so cool.
Isn't that eerie?
100%. I've talked to James Baylog before, who's one of the leading photographers who's documented the loss of glaciers over the years. And one of the sequences he's most famous for, you can get on YouTube now actually, it's called The Birthing of Icebergs. And it's following an ice sheet, I forget where, But as these chunks are falling into the ocean, and he's literally seen glaciers over the course of a decade, if not more, reduce in size. Like, he has photographic evidence of climate change, and people still deny it. It's pretty crazy to me. Anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to blindside you with my most important thing.
Not blindsided at all. It's just like I said, it's always interesting to me to hear what people are passionate about and what they're talking about and what their circles are curious about or
my circle tends to expand a little bit more, especially as the show progresses. I feel like I get a lot of opinions thrown at me from a lot of different areas, which is cool. Like, I like to know what people are talking about and what they're thinking. In your opinion, what are the key things that council's working on right now that's going to shape our future in Banff? Obviously, there's tons going on with housing. There's tons going on with transportation.
Absolutely. So council just recently published our 2027-2030 draft strategic plan. Mm-hmm. And within there, we outlined the key pillars that we want to focus on in the next 4 years. And those are, as you mentioned, building a life in Banff, protecting Banff's environment, moving people sustainably, and nurturing relationships and collaboration. And we built this plan largely off of feedback we heard during the Banff Community Plan consultation. Yeah. And so we know that these are issues that are still needing to be addressed in town. And really at the heart of the plan is a vision to make Banff a more resilient and inclusive community that balances residents, natures, and our tourism-based economy. So we do have an umbrella topic area of human use as well.
Mm-hmm. As we dive more into these topics, I find it really funny that the locals seem to be the hardest to keep happy, right? Like, tourism, they'll come, they're gonna have a great time. Like, this place is very difficult to enjoy. It's more our locals that, as we run out of things, like big serious problems to complain about, we seem to find more and more smaller ones. I think we have it very good here, honestly, and I think the focuses of council are in the right direction. I think you'd be few and far between to find those that are super opinionated against what we're doing. And I think the main thing that lies about that is parking, which we will get to in a moment, but it's that's one tiny thing as far as the larger scheme of things. Before we get to parking, let's get to childcare.
Sure.
Why should someone without kids, because let's face it, a lot of people in Banff don't have kids, why should they care about childcare spaces in Banff?
I've been thinking about this, and I think there's no higher badge of honor for a community than families feeling that your community is an amazing place to raise their children.
For sure.
When you think about what goes into that decision of where you want to raise your kids, you want it to be safe, you want it to be special. And so I think it says a lot that we have so many families here. That being said, childcare is one of those systems that helps a community reach its full potential. Mm-hmm. It supports children, families, employers, educators, and the broader workforce. So when childcare is strong, the whole community is stronger. So childcare affects the whole community, whether or not you personally have children. And when you think about it in terms of people who are parents, it can affect where they work. It can affect how businesses retain staff and whether families can stay in Banff and whether your community is livable for families. Mm-hmm. So
I think that's the big one, is whether families can stay in Banff, because I think that's one of the big barriers of, you see families all the time going it's either housing or childcare or jobs or a combination of all three. We mentioned kind of earlier that that's one of the focuses. What is happening specifically in childcare? You said there's more funding, or what's the...
So as you just noted, we do know from recent Statistics Canada data that we have had an 8% drop in families. Mm-hmm. So we know that we are losing families to other communities, and it's such a sad day in Banff when we lose good people. We all have good people we know that have moved out of the community. They've been pushed out because they can't find, to your point, appropriate housing or affordable or accessible childcare. Mm-hmm. And so there's a couple of different strategies in play. There's a shorter term one right now with the Daycare Society of Banff. Mm-hmm. They are going to be opening a third site in town, which is very welcome news. It's going to be called Elements. It's at St. George in the Pines.
I think last time we talked, that was one of the constraints, was having a space, right? I mean, obviously space, always an issue. So it's good that they at least found a new space to work at.
Absolutely. So they got really creative at looking at places in town where this could potentially work. And so they do have a license in place with St. George in the Pines, as I mentioned, and they are working to get that up and running. I would touch base with the daycare board chair recently to see where that was in terms of timing. They're very hopeful for September 1st or sooner.
Wow.
And that's about 36 spaces. So that's short term, and they've got that lease for about 3 years. So when we talk about long term, as I mentioned earlier, council has tasked administration with exploring the feasibility of adding permanent spaces to the existing childcare center that we have.
Cool.
And right now, it's a bit constrained with the land use bylaw, but that's a living and breathing document. And basically, I just want to try and figure out what those hurdles are and then knock them down.
This is like a never-ending game of Tetris of where can we put, what do we need? It's got to be tough to be the one to kind of narrow that down, or to be in those talks. Like, it just seems like a very tough puzzle to put together.
Absolutely. And I think we just need to be able to evolve and adapt to our community needs. Mm-hmm. And so this is an example of, we know that we're in a childcare crisis. We have 240 families on the daycare list. Some of those include folks from the Bow Valley, but we know that more than 100 of those are Banff families. And we need to think about that long-term picture. We had the daycare in 2025 talking about this because we undertook a child care assessment study. Mm-hmm. And then we had them back again about a year later, so this March. And I just sat there thinking, hindsight is 2020, and I wish we would have started moving on this a year ago, because we still need more spaces. So the point there is that we're working together and we're coming up with solutions, and we know that it is extremely stressful for families right now who don't have childcare. So we are making this a priority.
Amazing. Good to hear. Good to hear. My next question was, what does success look like when it comes to childcare? But it looks like we've already kind of brought that to the forefront, and it is just creating more spaces, right?
Totally. It's about families having more options, shorter wait times, and access to spots that are affordable and actually available.
Yeah. I've been told if you're thinking about having kids, get on the wait list.
Well, I'm just that total... what's a good way to put it? Not a wet blanket, but like, I'll congratulate my friends that are having kids. Like, I'm so excited. That's so awesome. And then I quickly pivot to, so do you know about childcare? And it's almost like, I don't want to dampen the celebratory vibes. Fair. But this is also such a huge piece that I think in other communities where you have more daycare facilities, it's not something you think about as, oh, I need to also figure out this piece of the puzzle. You just assume it's going to be there and be available to you. And unfortunately here, even though the province has deemed us adequate, we are in a bit of a childcare desert.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, when you take into the fact that a lot of people don't have their family networks here, I think that adds additional strain to the childcare system, because you can't just call your grandparents to take care of your kid for the day, or your aunt or your uncle, right? Like, not everyone has that luxury. So we need to lean on those services a little bit more. When they say it takes a community to raise a child, well, you know, these sayings aren't a thing because they're not true. You know what I mean?
I think
like,
you just nailed it. I am really proud to be a Banff auntie to a few children, and I have absolutely helped pitch in with babysitting and, you know, helping if they've got appointments, whatever, because you know that their families are far away and they need that chosen family to help out.
For sure. Let's move on to Tourism levels in Banff. We seem to be getting busier and busier. From your perspective, maybe from council's perspective, what are we expecting this summer to look like?
We are expecting another record breaker, Dan.
Record breaker. That seems to be the trend. Of course, I think the only non-record breaking year since like the late 90s was COVID, which was still in the millions. Was it millions? I think it was.
I don't totally recall what those numbers are.
I don't have the stats in front of me. I'm just so yeah, what we're expecting a record breaker. What does that mean as far as life in Banff?
So last year, as noted, we had a record-breaking amount of visitor vehicles into the town site. So that was 6.96 million, 1.8 million in July and August each. That was also a first for those months. And so we're expecting it to be at least that busy or more. And this is due to a number of factors. Of course, there's the Canada Strong Pass.
Yeah, highly debated, I would say. I mean, national parks are for everyone, so it's cool that people get to come and experience it for free. The point that kind of made it better in my mind is the fact that, okay, maybe it's not needed in Banff, but we forget that there's a multitude of national parks across the country that are benefiting tremendously from this, and it's not just about us in the end. Kind of a conceited way to look at the world a little bit. Yeah.
And that's just it. We aren't a national park that needs an incentive to come to.
Yeah.
And I can really appreciate that it's been a way for Canadians to connect with their national park system and to get outside and to enjoy summer. I think it's a great program based on that philosophy. As it relates to Banff, however, it adds pressure on a system that is already overburdened during peak season.
For sure. I think when, let's say, I don't know if Mark Carney directly makes this decision, but if he's sitting there thinking about this Canada Strong Pass, he's not thinking directly how it's going to affect Banff. I think he's thinking about how it's going to affect all Canadians, right? Like,
yes, you won't be surprised to know that he didn't call me and ask me for my opinion.
Hey, what do you think about that?
Exactly. So that's one component. It's also that there's a booming population in Calgary and the cities around Calgary.
For sure. That's a very and this is something that we don't have control over neither, right? Like these people the cities are growing. And when you Google, let's say, top thing to do in Calgary, do you know what it is?
No.
It's come to Banff.
Really?
It's very, very funny.
Wow.
That the number one thing when you Google it is to actually leave the city. So again, if you're a newcomer to any of these cities, the first thing or one of the things you're going to want to do is come to Banff.
And who can blame them?
Yeah, right? Like I found myself recently asking this question. It's like, of course people are coming. Like we all came here at one point. Like why? It's beautiful, you know?
Exactly. And I think there's also right now a desire for Canadians to stay closer to home when they vacation, gas prices, etc. Yeah. But what's really interesting is despite this unprecedented pressure on our road network and our parking capacity, we've actually made our travel times better and our congestion has stayed manageable. And this is because of the systems we've invested in and the community partnerships that we've made. So to give you a stat, 40% of all crossings going over the Bow River are by sustainable travel now.
That's huge.
Huge. It's taking 9,200 cars off the road a day in July and August.
So that tells me that at least the messaging, or at least people are finally getting the point that using public transit might be less of a headache than taking your personal vehicle.
I think the messaging is working. So if you're staying at a hotel or campground, keep your car parked and get on Roam or rent a bike, etc. If you do have to drive, park as soon as you can in the outskirts of town and then get on transit. But of course, this means that transit has to keep up with the pace of that growth in visitors that we're seeing. And Roam does have a plan for expansion, but it takes up to 2 years to get a new Roam bus. So it doesn't happen overnight.
For sure. So the catch-up might not be as quick as we would want it to be, but at least the prioritization is there. What do you think the biggest challenge over the next decade is? Do you think it's getting people here or moving them around once they are here? We obviously had some huge news lately with the province and the advancement of light rail, I guess, or rail transit.
They released the passenger rail master plan for Alberta.
Yeah. So which potentially could come to Banff.
Yeah, we were named in that. It's a 30-year plan, but we're named in it, and it's encouraging that the province does have a plan and that they're moving from feasibility to planning, which in bureaucratic speak is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's great, and we know that GHGs need to be reduced in Banff and that visitor vehicles are the number one producer, and we need to shift the way folks come here. So to answer your question, it's both.
Yeah.
We need to shift the way they come here, and then we need to continue building and strengthening the system once they're here to get them around in a sustainable way. Sure. So it really is both. And as it relates to once they get here, the town of Banff really wants Parks Canada to create a park-wide comprehensive transportation plan. They have that tagged in their 2022 Banff Park Management Plan, and we really want to encourage them to get that done sooner than later, and we want to work with them on that. And really it's because whatever is happening in nodes around the park affects us as the visitor center. And so we really need to look at how do we design a transportation plan that works throughout the park without any unintended consequences in other areas.
Again, it's another one of these puzzles that, like, how do we get people around? And again, it becomes down to a visitor experience. Like, that's what really factors on the visitor experience. So if they're coming here and having a bad time getting around, or like get here and can't move around, like at what point does it become so busy that it becomes undesirable to even visit, right? Like, you hear people from Calgary go, "Oh, I never come in the summer," and it's like, well, how do we keep that perception from spreading into larger demographics, right? Like, that's the last thing I feel like we would want as a tourist town. There's like the tourist town that sucks to go to, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's kind of a weird way that we're kind of, or strange, not a weird way. It's a weird problem that we're faced with that not a lot of other places are.
Well, and to go back to the Canada Strong Pass, that's what this was built to do, is to try and spark visitation to these areas, whereas we don't have that problem. And so we're grateful in ways that we don't have that issue. It's just about trying to manage the folks that come here. And so to kind of go back to some of the transportation conversations we were just having, we have 1,400 publicly available stalls on the north side of town, and then that's it. And so when you think about day visitation, that's who we're trying to solve this puzzle for, because we're effectively at build out. So the hotel base is the hotel base, the campground spaces are the campground spaces, but it's that variable of day visitation, especially as Calgary grows. So we need to look at both how they get here and then how they move around once they're here.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's going to take working with other orders of government. The municipality cannot do that alone.
Very true, very true. As we got through in our first episode, like, jurisdictionally, we can't just wave the wand here in town and pretend like we can do things. Like, you can't limit people's travel. You can't tell them, can't bring your vehicle. There's a lot of things that we can't do as a municipality. And if you want to know what those are, go check out our first episode when we sat down. This is kind of the big question for me. So as Banff continues to grow, and visitation keeps growing, it seems almost indefinite. Is there a point where we hit a limit? I know we kind of talked about this, maybe not in your first episode, but with a lot of the other councillors that we're running. Do you think we'll ever hit a point where we need to cap limitation or cap visitation?
So I think that we, in some way, do have practical limits in place. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 1,400 parking stalls, and that's it. So that's a natural limit that exists in terms of day visitors. But speaking more broadly, I think that the Skijoring Saturday was a real wake-up call for us.
Yeah. So like I've mentioned this on the podcast multiple times as that kind of setting a precedent for like a limit. You know what I mean? Like that was a heavy onslaught of vehicles in a short amount of time. Is it the amount of vehicles and the amount of time that matters, or like what is the formula from a town's perspective of what makes sense for, say, closing the entrance?
Mm-hmm. So with that episode in particular, it was that we saw what it looked like when a growing Calgary decided to come on the same day at the same time, and it created this never before seen compression.
I would call it a perfect storm event type situation, right? Like you had unseasonably warm weather. It was a beautiful day with a free event that was exceptionally well marketed. It's kind of the way I put it. Like
it definitely was a perfect storm. Something that folks don't know that I like to bring up is that Banff and Lake Louise Tourism marketed it just the same as they always had.
For sure.
Because that was the 4th year. And they marketed for snow days as a whole. They didn't market specific events.
Good to know. Like
exactly.
Like, I just felt like people knew about it and people were waiting for it. Like,
but that being said, there was this virality. How do you say that word?
Virality.
To it all, where it was this organic reach, the Yellowstone vibes that everybody's after, and the Stampede fashion scene.
It seemed to last all winter too. Like after skijoring, like every weekend you seem to see people like kind of recreating that look in Banff. It's crazy what it, anyways.
Yeah, so it was this perfect storm, but it definitely was a wake-up call for having too many vehicles in town, and at times just that really compressed area of people in the downtown core, and just what that raised in terms of safety. And so my biggest fear is that if we don't plan in earnest for the future, we could have a skijoring every Saturday of the summer 10 years from now.
Yeah, fair.
And so it's really important that we take what we learned from that and apply it to the future. And I continue to believe that it's transit, that mass transit's the way of the future. So when you're asking about limits and that conversation coming to council, as I mentioned earlier, part of our strategic plan is human use. Mm-hmm. And so we've already started doing some legwork on this whole exercise. We kicked it off at the council open house last week, where we asked questions of residents, where are you experiencing too many people? Is it on our infrastructure, our transportation systems? Does it feel like it impacts quality of life? The sidewalks, hospitals, restaurants, what is it? Mm-hmm. So right now we're in this exploratory phase where we're talking with residents and businesses, and then we'll move to phase 2 to better understand what we could control or influence and develop strategies from there. So it will be a community conversation, and it will eventually end up at the council table.
Because it really depends who you ask, and age demographic seems to be a huge factor on what people kind of care about or where people find the busyness being inconvenient. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not driving, you don't care that if there's traffic. If you're, I don't know, like I don't see us having a busy town as being an inconvenience. Like there's always this nostalgia. Like I think people look back on the early days of Banff, maybe in the early 90s when visitation was really low, but people weren't traveling like they were back then. Like it's just a fact where like economically people just weren't traveling. I don't know if people look back on those days maybe because they were maybe younger and enjoying it more, whereas like it's easy to kind of get cynical and think that things have changed so drastically, but like to think things would stay the same is a little bit insane in my book. So I don't know. I like the way we're moving forward and at least looking the way to solve these problems. I don't think like setting caps is a good way to do it. Again, finding ways to have people enjoy it in a better manner, I think is the focus, and as it should be.
Well, I don't think you could ever dip a community in amber and it stay that way
For sure,
forever.
right?
There's going to be evolution and adaptation.
It just seems to be like there's always this looking back on how much better it was instead of looking forward of how much better it could be. Like it's a weird, yeah, I don't know. But a lot of that is like people love being nostalgic too, right? So,
Oh, for sure. We definitely romanticize the past and ways of life. But I think I also like to say that for Banff to stay the same in keeping its mountain charm and its community character, we do need to be evolving and making sure that we are safeguarding this place. And we do have those in place in the land boundary and the commercial cap and the need to reside. But we also want to make sure that we, as we talked about earlier, keep our families here. That's really important. We want to make sure that there's a sense of community here. And that means everybody having a safe and secure and reliable place to live. So to your point, it's about trying to make it better for everyone.
well, let's get on to housing since we're talking about that, because housing seems to be kind of the biggest thing when it comes to people's quality of life, I would say. With approximately like 600 units on the way, we're making real progress. What do you think? Is there anything more that we could be doing right now? Like 600 units is pretty huge. What are your thoughts?
Well, if 600 is huge.
We have to take our hats off to you because obviously none of this would be possible without our council making the push for this to happen. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So I was going to say, if 600 is huge, what do we call 700? Because that is the new number.
That's the new number.
That's the new number.
Nice.
Hot off the press, 700 net new homes are in the development pipeline.
Amazing. And we're talking about a shortage of
700 to 1,000.
700 to 1,000.
So we're making real progress. We could be effectively closing our housing gap.
Amazing.
Which is such a, I get goosebumps thinking about it.
Yes.
Like it's such a surreal moment as someone that has been a part of this team trying to move this forward for more than a decade. And it is so rewarding. And, I think that it gives me a lot of hope that we won't lose any more good people.
I think, it's housing is the number one concern, I think. We have economical sustainability in the fact that we have tourism and the fact that we have these busy times. So to point the finger at tourism being the bringer of all of our evils, I think is a little bit of kind of biting the hand that feeds. It's easy to point the finger at this big faceless villain, but it's what makes all this possible, right?
Yes, if you go back to the basics in our incorporation agreement, we're here to be a visitor service center, and it's such a privilege to be able to welcome Canadians and the world here and to show them our home. And so we get to live here to serve visitors. Of course, it also says there needs to be a comfortable living community, which is why we have worked so hard on housing. But when I think about some of the amenities we have as a town of 9,000, you wouldn't have those in any other municipality of our size. The Banff Center, the restaurants, the trails, the ski hills, the infrastructure.
The third largest transit system in the province.
There we go.
And what are the other two? Calgary and Edmonton, which are significantly larger cities with huge populations compared to ours. So I think, the amenities and we're on the way. It's how do we make it that much better, right?
Totally. So, and I kind of wanted to break down. So we're at 700 net new homes. And just to give you a sense of that, and I'll tally us up back to 700. So 260 net new homes have development permits. 192 net new homes are conditionally approved and are currently fulfilling the conditions needed to proceed. And 248 net new homes are under review. And 32 have occupancy. So when we kind of get into talking about parking here in a sec, of that 700, 32 have people currently living in them.
Amazing.
So
the ball is
on the way,
rolling.
But we also still need time to understand how the dust is going to settle. And those 32 are primarily those secondary suites. Those are the easiest ones to turn around quickly. And I just find that whole program so cool. I know we talked about this last time, but it's a way for homeowners to
For sure, supplement income.
Exactly.
Like, it's a win-win-win.
and put a roof over someone's head, and you have a brand new place all to yourself. That is so unheard of in Banff.
Well, I think when we talked about places like Middle Springs, especially during the election, and being these like really amazing developments, but unfortunately those can't be replicated, I think opening up units in those homes is a genius idea for upping the total rental units, right? Like, and if they have space to give and they want to have a second income, it's like they're, it's a cool way to bridge kind of the younger and the older generation as well, because let's be honest, someone who's more established that has a full home is probably going to get a younger person in there or a single person, right? So I think it creates more community as well. So there's that aspect of it. Very, very cool for those that want to do that, definitely.
Oh, I totally agree. And it's also creating some gentle density. So if a home already exists there, this is just a nice sort of subtle way of adding more in a gentle way. And what's also cool about it is that 98.5% of residential land already has housing on it. So that means we either need to redevelop or find ways to be able to build it into what currently exists.
When you think about turnaround time and solving it in a timely manner, that is the more timely manner to do so, which makes perfect sense. I love it. When housing projects come up, we always talk about parking. Now, in our last episode, you said this. You said, I lose sleep over where Banffites live and how they're living. I don't lose sleep over where they park. Now, what would you say to the growing number of residents who seem to think we're headed for a parking apocalypse? Because this demographic of people is growing, I feel.
So first of all, I was in my sassy era when I said that. But certainly, I think as a community, it incumbent upon all of us to want people to be housed appropriately. Mm-hmm. That's just a good foundation for all of us to be coming from. But I'll cut to the punchline. So parking's still being built. So for folks that are anxious, we certainly hear those concerns and we're monitoring the situation. And part of that monitoring is we are paying attention to what's being built. And we got a report in March of this year, and at that time we had 552 net new homes, and the calculation on that was 0.6 of a stall was being built on average. And by the way, that's the number that we have as having car ownership in town is 0.61 cars per resident.
So it matches the ownership levels that you find.
So we're sort of landing
that kind of makes sense,
where we need to be. And what's interesting too is that developers are building based on the product that they are either going to try to sell or rent. So for example, there's a big project on Cave Avenue, 145 to 155 Cave Ave, and they are building 88 units with 69 parking stalls, which is above and beyond what the old land use bylaw would have determined they needed to do.
But based on the units that they're building, they figure those people probably have vehicles, right? Like, I think that's you can make those assumptions based off the price, the size, right? I think that's something that a lot of regular townspeople maybe don't know about, for sure.
And then another example is 408 Martin Street. So there's going to be 23 units there. That's Caribou staff accommodation, and they're also going to be building on Link Street, but they're going to have all the parking on Link Street and manage who they put in based on who needs parking. So the one on Martin won't have parking.
Yeah.
So folks are building based on the demand that they're going to have for parking. And it kind of reminds me of a potluck where you're always a little bit stressed that you're not going to have enough food or people aren't going to bring a variety.
Yeah, fair.
And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much food here. So this is kind of like people are bringing parking stalls to the table for a little Parksgiving. Like it's happening.
Such a good analogy. I think where the real concern comes from is people walk past a development like, say, Cougar Street or the one near the hospital here, and then they see the road filled with cars that are parked there, and they go, oh my God, where are the cars going to park for this many units? I think it's just an unfair link that they make to their day-to-day reaction is like, well, maybe that street that is now visitor parking might be changed to resident park. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel people are super easy to attack the one chink in the armor when the armor protects the greater good. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's as dire as people are making it seem. I think it's just the one thing that they can cling on when it comes to like talking bad about a project, in my opinion.
I think the other piece to all this too is we're trying to build up the public infrastructure to match the housing policies that we've implemented. So we are continuing to invest in Rome. We had 7,000 unique residents come in for their free Rome Pass that lets them go on local routes, and they took a total of 500,000 rides in 2025. So we're continuing that. We have given out 820 e-bike rebates since 2022. We're continuing that. We turned back on the Banff Center route to the Banff Center, obviously. That's in the name. And we also added the Fenlands to that.
Yeah.
And so we brought back a whole nother route of transit. And we are also going to be launching the car share program later this week. So we're really trying to build up this infrastructure side to give people options to where they could live car-free or car-light. So we're not just saying, we're going to not allow for any parking stalls and just see what happens. We're also trying to create this sustainable transportation network at the same time. And another point that I wanted to make is that when we did our latest Banff resident satisfaction survey, which we tried to do in a statistically valid way. So the representative sample of folks we talked to said that they didn't own cars. That was 13% of Banffites said they didn't own cars. And when we went out for survey for the car share program, we had over 500 residents take part, and 77% said they'd be interested in trying the car share program.
Well, I mean, I think that would be one of the only downsides to being a person without a vehicle here is access, right? Or like having to go do groceries, yada yada. And this is the perfect opportunity to have more residents with less vehicle space. Like, I feel like that combined with the housing, combined with the parking numbers that we have that match, like, I think we're kind of on the right track personally.
Me too. And the fact that it has helped spark 700 net new units is incredible.
Yeah.
If you would have told me several years ago, hey, I've got the magic plan here of how you're going to get to this, I mean, I would have sold you my soul. Like, what is it? Like, tell me what the magic solution is.
Yeah.
And our housing action plan has just really helped spark this, and it's been incredible, and it's been above and beyond what we expected, which is leading to some crunchiness on the administration side in terms of processing everything. We did not expect this amount. It was above and beyond what we expected. So we totally understand that there can be some frustrations as it relates to meeting those expectations of timing and getting everything moved through the process, but we are working really hard. This is the top priority.
And, you know, you can tell with 700 new units. So we tip our hat to you for that. Let's get a little, I don't want to say a little spicy. I don't know. A couple weeks ago, you made a post about Alberta's separation referendum and the broader political climate in Alberta. What made you feel that it was important to speak up on that issue right now?
So you mentioned getting spicy. I was such a fan of the Spice Girls. So it's like political spice.
A little bit, I guess. Political spice. That's
political spice. I just think it's so important that elected officials are transparent on this issue because so many municipalities collaborate with other orders of government, including the federal government, to bring programming to their communities. So social services, transportation, etc. And so if your community's at risk of losing those, if something changes, that's a big deal to people's daily lives. So I think folks need to be really transparent about this. And historically, I stay pretty quiet through provincial, federal elections, through referendums, through votes of the electorate.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the only thing I ever endorsed is myself on the ballot.
Yeah. And we can see proof of that when we discuss pet zone stuff and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we can tell by your actions. So
Yeah, exactly. Because it's your vote. It's your choice. And so, I respect however people want to vote, and that's ultimately up to them. But on this one, it just felt like a moment for leadership, and part of that was I wanted Banffites to know where I stood.
because we're faced by some pretty, when we're talking about separation in this referendum, we're faced as a pretty specific. We have our own set of rules, let's say, because we're not just an Alberta town, we're a national park. Right, national being the key word there. We're an international tourist destination, one of the major economic drivers of the whole province when you look outside of oil and gas and maybe, agriculture, right? Like, our tourism is huge. Why do we have a different perspective than, say, another Alberta small town? I don't want to name one, but...
Well, it's in our DNA. We have always been on federal lands as far as Canadian history goes.
Yeah.
And before that, certainly Banff is on Treaty 7 territory, and this treaty predates both Banff National Park and the province of Alberta.
That's what, is the craziest thing to me in this is First Nations has to say first of all. So I don't see why we're trying to overpass them or people are trying to go above and beyond. And I just don't understand this need for division where, given the international political standpoint, we need to be together at this time.
Oh, I totally agree. And, when I think about Banff in particular, we have so many strategic priorities that we've just sat here and talked about that we need to be laser focused on. And so this just feels like pulling us away from that work that we need to be doing. But at the same time, it is so important that folks show up on October 19th and they vote, because we need to send the message that Banff is staying in Canada, Alberta is staying in Canada, and that we just want to shut down this conversation once and for all.
I would agree. I would implore people to research the Centurion Project and the data leak and the tactics that particular movement is using to not only access your information, but your social media feeds. And basically, they're trying to identify voters that are on the fence, basically, that would be more persuadable than most, and then teaming that up with a social media approach to change your mind, basically. It's a tactic. The Centurion Project openly states that these same tactics were used in the state of Michigan to get Donald Trump elected. Now, what does that pertain to Alberta? I think you guys should go look into it yourself, because when I started digging into it, I find it's a crazy way of manipulating information that they're not supposed to have and teaming it up with a crazy huge social media conglomerate, which is American owned, by the way, to sow division in our country. So if you're flicking through your feed and all you see is this super divisive content, maybe you've been identified as one of these on the fence people. So you should be aware that you're being targeted, essentially, by some pretty crazy forces that have a lot of money that, again, I believe the goal is money. They don't want what's best for you as the voter. They want what's best for them in their pockets. So that's my opinion.
It sounds well researched.
Yeah, I mean, we talked to a lot of people doing this show, and I've been quiet about my opinion as well. I think it's time to kind of put it out there, because it's easy to be misinformed these days. Emotions speak louder than facts, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people that are caught up in this pro-separation side, especially of the debate, is a very emotional response. And it's very much this feeling of being taken from by Ottawa, which I don't really see. But it's...
Well, and I think it goes back to a referendum being the tool for this. It's one thing to have that perspective and to have those feelings. So then let's talk about it. Yeah. But a referendum is so black and white. There's no room for nuance, and it doesn't leave room to figure out a way forward in the current conditions. It's very black and white.
I would agree. So yeah, get out there and vote, whatever side of the coin you are. Because I'm kind of the same. Like, I would never tell someone what to believe. I think you should be well researched in what you believe. I don't think you should let your feed or the comment section on a video dictate what you believe. But the choice is ultimately yours. So show up, vote for what you want, I guess. Setting politics aside for a moment, what do you think about the long-term future of Banff? And what do you think one of the biggest challenges that we're still facing, maybe we haven't kind of unraveled yet?
I mean, when you ask that question, it's a daunting question because we are working on so much. And I like to believe that we have a pretty good pulse on the community and what our short-term and long-term issues are. That being said, a conversation that has been rising more to the surface recently is the growth that we are going to be seeing in the Bow Valley. So for instance, in Kananaskis country, to our neighbors that are closer, Canmore, and what impact will that have on Banff? And so I think that that is something that we need to begin to put some time and focus and partnership into. So council recently approved some funding, about $25,000 for administration to look into the feasibility of a destination stewardship council.
I think we talked about this, maybe not with yourself, but with other town councilors in the election process of having almost a council for the Bow Valley because we're all facing the same tourism challenge, but there doesn't seem to be that coordination at the time.
Exactly. And we meet on so many different topics. So there's a human wildlife coexistence roundtable where you've got partners from across the Bow Valley, including Parks Canada. We've got our wildfire risk reduction committee, which has those same members. We've got the Bow Valley Regional Transit Services Commission, which has a focus obviously on transit. So we have these models in place where we meet specifically to talk about these issues and to understand what others are doing in their jurisdictions. And so that's what we're looking to replicate here, but with a focus on visitor management.
Nice. Because that's, again, if the more we can manage the visitors, I feel like a well-managed visitor leads to a well-managed local. You know what I mean? Like,
it's a very symbiotic relationship, and we want residents to have a high quality of life here the way we want visitors to have a world-class experience here.
Awesome. I think no one can argue with that, really. What are you most excited when you think about the future of Banff?
I'm super excited about housing and that we could be on the cusp of really great things. We'll continue to monitor our vacancy rate, for example, and our wait lists for the Banff Housing Corporation, as well as other ones in town, to see how we're doing. But I'm really hopeful that in the next few years, we could have really made significant progress in solving our housing shortfall.
Well, I think we all agree that's the number one issue, and I think we're on the right track. So at least there's that.
Well, thanks, Dan.
What do you think? Okay, this is kind of off topic. We can even cut this if you don't like it. If you were to think about like your legacy as mayor, what do you think would be your biggest highlight? Like transportation, because that was a huge change for Banff. Making transportation free for locals is huge. Or housing, obviously. What?
That's a great question. You don't really sit and think about
I know, right?
legacy. You're just in it and you're trying to move the needle. I think what I'll be most proud of looking back is that I would have been able to make Banff a more livable place for more people on my time on council. That will make me feel really good. And whether that's because we've invested in transit or because we've moved the needle on housing, as well as climate change, because we need to have a town to live in. It'll make me really proud.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
Thanks,
I think
Dan.
we unpacked a lot of stuff. I think for me, housing and transit, like those have always been our biggest issues, and we're addressing them. Parking issues may be a bit overblown from our conversation. I think the plans are there. They're being mitigated, folks. So before you start believing this big bad parking monster is coming to get you, check out this episode. And let us know what you think in the comments. Don't be shy to like, subscribe if it's your first time joining us. Tons of people dropping in for the first time, and they don't hit the like and subscribe. So if that's you, don't be shy to do so. If you like our merch sitting on the table here, Defending Awesome, our another community partner who is helping us do our merch. They do more than just merch. They're a full print shop. They do conceptualization. They do design, graphic work. So if you have a project, you're a small business, you're an artist, stop in, talk to the team down at Defending Awesome. They got great stuff, and they'll help your vision come to life. Any closing points you want to add before we go, or?
I would just say that council's door is always open, and we really want to work together on those strategic priorities that I mentioned earlier. We can't do it alone. We need community to help us, and we look forward to hearing from folks.
And there's no shortage of opportunity if you do want to have your voice heard as far as town council meetings or community input, or like I said the other day, council was just at the Fenlands, just hanging out with people, getting their peace of mind in real life. So it's not like, I'm from Ottawa, so politicians tend to be a little bit less accessible when you get to the federal level or even the provincial level. Not the case municipally. You can come and hang out with you guys and really share your concerns if you want to do so. So
we're the government of the people.
That's it. I think, honestly, in my perspective, if governance kind of took more of a step into that, we would have, I think that's where a lot of the problems come, and a lot of the discontent with the higher levels of government is the disconnect that they have because the people don't feel represented, or in this case, in our province right now, they feel taken from, which is I don't know. I think it's a disconnect between, or maybe a lack of communication, or a lack of, maybe acceptance from the federal level from certain provinces that has really grown this feeling of us versus them when it really shouldn't be that. Anyways, thanks so much for chatting. Thanks so much for tuning in. That's all we got for today. Go check out our website, overheardpodbanff.com. Like every week, we'll see you next Tuesday.